Well, well, well. I got a hot cup of tea. Are you ready? I'm sure it's all just coincidence. But either way, you remember just yesterday when Daddy come out to say that it's time to bring real sugar back to Coca-Cola? Yes, honey, Daddy took to his not-so-true socials. And most people thought this was a bit of distraction away from the island guy and those files. But I'm about to connect it directly to the island guy. Yes, boo. Yes, you'll remember Daddy twatted this out into the twatosphere. I have been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so, and I'd like to thank all those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You'll see it just gets... Now, do you remember this? Yes. Back in March, the Trump administration quietly lifted the ban on a sugar company part owned by a South Florida family. That ban was put in place because that sugarcane plantation used forced labor. That's right. Forced labor. And so the U.S. put sanctions there and banned them from selling their sugarcane in the U.S. of A. But Daddy lifted that ban back in March. Sugar is at play. But how is this connected to the island guy? Well, well, well. You know that little black book that's filled with all those names of his closest contacts and friends and confidants? Guess who's in that book? Jose Pepe Fanjul, the guy, the $8.2 billion billionaire who owns that sugar plantation. That's right. Not only does his family reside in South Florida, baby, he was actually on the list of those close to Epstein. And, well, Daddy. It's amazing how he tries to distract you with information about Coca-Cola that reroutes itself right back to none other than Epstein. I'm sure it's all just coincidence that Epstein had Pepe's name and number in his contact list. I'm sure. I'm sure when we follow some money from Epstein, honey, you're going to find a connection there. They're all connected. The pedo billionaire. Those that are okay with forced labor. Maybe you don't know the story about Daddy Dumpy Pants. The kerfuffle, the controversy around one of his resorts across the way in Sandland. How he would import migrant workers there, seize their passports, and tell them they could not get them back until they earned them back. Only they didn't make enough pay to actually earn back or buy back their passports. Their living quarters were dirty and filthy. They were forced labor. Looks like Daddy and Pepe have a few things in common when it comes to forced labor, but either way, they also have something else in common today. Epstein. But I'm sure it's all just coincidence. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that just yesterday Blondie Bondi decided to fire Miss Comey. I'm sure it was all just because her daddy is James. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that she is one of the very few people who've had their eyes on all the evidence around Diddy, Epstein, and Maxwell. I'm sure that's just coincidence. I'm sure it was just coincidence when 24 hours before that firing, she got rid of her very own ethics advisor. I'm sure it's just coincidence that we are learning today that there are over thousands of documents proving of money being transferred. Around $1.1 billion in money transactions out of just one of Mr. Epstein's bank accounts. I wonder if any of those transactions are going to lead back to Pepe today. I wonder. I'm pretty sure they will. But either way, it had nothing to do with actually bringing sugar back to Coca-Cola, boo. I'm sure it's just coincidence. Okay, I think that's enough tea for me today.